Paris, May 1925. In a private suite at one of the most expensive hotels in the world, a man who does not exist is about to sell a monument he does not own. Within days, he will walk away with a fortune, and the buyer will tell no one. No police report, no newspaper story, nothing. That silence is exactly why, weeks later, the same man came back to Paris to sell the Eiffel Tower a second time. This is the true story of the smoothest con man who ever lived. And like every story in this archive, it begins with a piece of paper. That spring, the newspapers of Paris were chewing on an embarrassing problem. The Eiffel Tower, the iron symbol of France, was rusting. It had been built for the World's Fair of 1889, and it was never meant to be permanent. Now, 36 years later, maintenance was devouring public money, and some articles openly asked whether the city should simply tear it down. Most readers turned the page. One man read the article twice. His name, or at least one of his 47 names, was Victor Lustig. Born in Bohemia, fluent in 5 languages, impeccable manners, expensive suits, and a scar on his left cheek from a jealous rival, Lustig had spent his entire life selling things that did not exist. And in that newspaper article, he saw the opening of a lifetime. If the government could plausibly demolish the tower, then someone could plausibly sell the scrap metal, 7,000 tons of it. Remember that word, plausibly. It is the only raw material a con artist ever needs. The first thing Lustig forged was not a signature, it was authority. Official government stationery, printed by a master counterfeiter. A fake title, Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, and a suite at the Hôtel de Crillon, the kind of address that answers questions before they are asked. From that suite, he sent confidential letters to 6 of the biggest scrap metal dealers in France. A matter of state, absolute discretion required. All 6 showed up. Why would 6 shrewd, self-made businessmen believe him? Because everything around the lie was true. The hotel was real. The champagne was real. The limousine that drove them to inspect the tower was real. Lustig explained, almost apologetically, that the government had decided to sell the tower for scrap, but feared a public outcry, so the deal had to remain secret until it was signed. And with that single sentence, he turned his greatest weakness into his greatest weapon. Secrecy was no longer a red flag. Secrecy was the product. Loop. But Lustig wasn't studying the tower that day. He was studying the 6 men. He wasn't looking for the richest one. He was looking for something far more valuable, and one of them had it. His name was André Poisson. Of the 6 dealers, he was not the wealthiest, and he was not the smartest. He was something better. He was hungry. Poisson was an outsider who had clawed his way up, and he desperately wanted a seat at the table of the Parisian elite. A government contract like this would be his invitation. Lustig read that hunger the way other men read a newspaper. There was only one obstacle: Poisson's wife. She asked the questions her husband refused to ask. Why the secrecy? Why the rush? Why a hotel suite instead of a ministry office? The deal began to wobble, and this is where Lustig produced the single most brilliant move of his career. He requested a private meeting with Poisson and confessed. He said, "Look at me. I am a government official. I wear these suits. I entertain in these rooms, and my salary pays for none of it." He was, he implied, a poor civil servant, open to a bribe. And just like that, every suspicion collapsed, because a corrupt official asking for money under the table. In 1925, Nothing on earth could sound more authentic. Poisson paid for the Eiffel Tower, and then he paid the bribe on top. A banker's draft worth a fortune, handed over in exchange for a worthless piece of paper with a forged letterhead. Within hours, Lustig was on a train to Vienna with a suitcase full of money. And then he did something strange. Every single morning, he bought the Paris newspapers and searched them for his own crime. Nothing. Day after day, nothing. Weeks, nothing. Poisson had discovered the truth and had chosen silence. Because the mathematics of shame are brutal, the money was already gone, but his reputation, that he could still save. If Paris ever learned that André Poisson had bought the Eiffel Tower from a stranger in a hotel room, he wouldn't just be poorer, he would be a punchline, forever. And sitting in that Vienna cafe, reading about a crime that officially never happened, Victor Lustig understood something that changed the history of fraud. A victim's shame is a better bodyguard than any getaway car, which is why he ordered another coffee, packed his bags, and went back to Paris to do it again. Same city, same hotel, same forged letterhead, 6 brand new scrap dealers, summoned with the same confidential letter. The script was identical, because why rewrite a masterpiece? But this time, one of the buyers hesitated. Something felt rehearsed, too smooth. Before handing over the money, he made a few quiet phone calls, and the ministry had never heard of any cell. By the time the police reached the Hôtel de Crillon, the suite was empty. Lustig was already moving, and within days, he was on a ship crossing the Atlantic, one step ahead of a warrant. Behind him, the Eiffel Tower stood exactly where it had always stood. It had now been sold twice, and it had never been for sale. In America, Lustig became a legend of the underworld. He ran cons in 40 states under an ocean of false names. He sold money printing boxes to greedy millionaires for tens of thousands of dollars, elegant mahogany machines that printed exactly 2 real banknotes, both planted before producing blank paper forever. He even conned Al Capone. He took $50,000 from the most dangerous man in Chicago for a fake investment, kept the cash untouched in a deposit box for 2 months, then returned every dollar, apologizing that the deal had fallen through. Capone, moved by such rare honesty, rewarded him with $5,000, which was the plan all along. Lustig didn't steal from Capone. He sold him honesty, counterfeit, like everything else he ever sold. He kept a private list, his 10 commandments of the con. Number 1, be a patient listener. Number 3, wait for the other man to reveal his opinions, then agree with them. But in the 1930s, he reached too far. A counterfeiting operation so large it flooded the country and put the Secret Service on his trail. In 1935, betrayed by a jealous tip-off, he was finally arrested. The day before his trial, he cut bedsheets into a rope and climbed out of a federal detention center in Manhattan, pausing in front of stunned pedestrians to wipe the windows on his way down, like an ordinary window cleaner. They caught him a month later, 20 years, Alcatraz. He died there of pneumonia in 1947, and on his death certificate, in the box marked occupation, someone wrote 2 words, apprentice salesman. The man who sold the Eiffel Tower twice left this world as a beginner. Lustig's real invention was never the fake ministry or the forged letterhead. It was a discovery about us, that the fear of looking stupid is stronger than the loss of money, that silence can be engineered. Every great fraud in this archive, from fake gold mines to $20 billion empires, is built on that same quiet mathematics. It worked in 1925. It is working on someone right now. The Aurum Files are open. Next in the archive, the man who invented an entire country, flag, currency, parliament, and sold it to hundreds of families who boarded ships to a place that did not exist. That is case file number 2. Subscribe. The archive is just getting started.